right, guys, another great episode of PFREI, a passion for real estate investments. I'm your host, Fuquan Bilal, and we're here today with our guest, Saprina Allen. Oh, man, it's been a long time coming. I've been chasing you down at these events, trying to get you on the podcast. So we had the opportunity today. We had the Noteworthy Investor Summit here in lovely California. And I ran into Saprina. She actually just finished her presentation. Great presentation, by the way. She's always been one to add value to people in the real estate community. I've learned a great deal from her over the years, and she continues to add value. And we'll talk a little bit about that, the masterminds and stuff you do. But first, let's start off and talk about, how did you get started in the debt collection business and the real estate mortgage note business? But just real estate in general, because you're doing some real estate too. We'll get into all of that stuff. I like that. But let's talk about your start in this industry. How you guys started? How did you get started?
So I needed a job.
Okay.
That's real talk. And I remember it was New Year's Eve, and I was sending out tons and tons of resumes, and all of my friends worked the collection side, and I always worked the administrative side because I was always admin support, I think, for my nurturing personality. And I'm like, if they can do that, I can do that. And so I submitted a resume to National City Bank on New Year's Eve. I'll never forget it, just trying to start new, 1995. And I got a call for an interview. And at that time, it was for small business collections. And most of the people in the department had a degree, and I did not. And my resume was impressive to the manager who was actually interviewing me. And he says, you have one strike against you. And I said, what's that? He said, you don't have a degree. He said, so I'm going to bring you in. He said, but I'm going to pay you about $17,000 less a year. I'm paying my other staff, and you have to prove yourself. And I had a choice then, knowing that I was actually coming in very underpaid, required to do the same job, or I could go in and show them what I was worth. And I went in and I fell in love with it. Within 90 days, I became the department trainer and started really just climbing up the ladder. But then I was seeing all these files over in the foreclosure department. I said, what are they doing over there? Yeah. I said, I think they must be lazy. No offense. It was all men over there. And I remember the charge-offs were high, even back in 95, 96. But one of the things that was puzzling to me is that they didn't foreclose in Pennsylvania at all. And so I got to ranting and raving. And so the manager said, well, why don't you just transfer over? Just bid out, and you can come over to my department. And when I went over, when I first started, my goal a month was $230,000 a month when I first started in foreclosure. By the time I left in 2004, my goal was $2.6 million a month. Oh, wow. But it was just one of those things that I kept beating myself, and got creative, started selling some stuff to somebody in New York, giving them my junk, not knowing that it was their treasure, and not knowing that those transactions would kind of really end up with where I am today. Wow. So that's kind of how I got started. It was just basically needing a job to be able to take care of my kids.
Awesome. Now you're very passionate about it because you continue to add value to others. That's sort of how we met at these events, where you were actually educating people and showing them about this business. And you made a statement that stick with me today. The collection part of it, to be very mindful of it, because there's a real live person behind this house. Is just not an investment tool. You got real people behind it. And you said that there's a heart in every home. Yeah. That's your statement that you made, and that resonated with me. I was like, wow, it's more than just a high-end collection or trying to make a profit off it. It's about adding value, being socially responsible, adding value to people, saving people in their homes, and making a profit while doing that. So talk a little bit about that. Being on the collection side, I'm pretty sure you dealt with all different types of people that you've helped. I know there was a situation that happened before that, hit home with you with the borrower and all of that. I don't know if you want to get into that, but just talk a little bit about that, like the journey that you've been through on a collection side, leaps and bounds, and, where you see the value at, because a lot of the new people want to get into this business and they just looking at the money, and they're not putting things in perspective and saying, okay, these are real live people that are in these homes that have families. So talk a little bit about that.
So I think about where I came from. 19 years old, single mom, pregnant and homeless. So I remember that somebody helped me, and they had a choice to help me. And I always made a commitment that if I got into a place to be able to help people, because it was the circumstances. It wasn't that I wasn't working. It wasn't that I wasn't trying. I had just made some poor choices in life that would not allow me to get ahead until somebody helped me. And I always thought about that somebody extended the olive branch to me. And if I was put in a position to put America back on its feet, one mortgage at a time, and actually do it and treat people like they were people and not just numbers, not just an investment, I vowed to do that. And I go to the heartbeat in every home, because you never want to be on the receiving end of that phone call when you have a moving company showing up to move someone out and somebody's laying in the doorway because they've committed suicide.
Wow.
That was a life changer for me. I thought about that. Miss Reynolds, she was an African American woman, and I thought, this could have been me, this could have been my mother, it could have been my grandmother, it could have been my sister, and it was life changing for me. And no profit in that transaction was ever worth this lady taking her life. Never.
Wow. Yeah, that's deep. I remember you talked about that years ago, and I was just like, wow, that's crazy. You know, you go through the process of trying to help somebody, and they feel like there's no way out, and they just, take their own life. And being a collection person on the other end of that, you go through that. I mean, there's been tons of times when asset managers that has worked with me, had to go down a path of, trying to work something out, going on a legal path, and a person have health issues and all that. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot. You get, emotional sometimes, and it's hard to recover from that. So that's one thing that people need to know about this collection piece, that, when you have your loan servicers or asset manager in the collection, that's the part that people miss. Mm-hmm. So, and I always talk about, when you evaluate these assets, it's not just the property, you also evaluating the borrower and taking that into account. So nowadays, you're doing some real estate also. Mm-hmm. We always talk about that when we talk over the phone. You say you see me on Facebook doing some stuff, and you're doing some stuff where you are in Ohio. Let's talk a little bit about that. You made the transition from the collection piece to doing education, to helping out other people in the industry, buying notes and stuff. And then now you're doing a little bit of real estate also. So you're doing a little bit of both notes and real estate, which I call diversified hybrid real estate investing. Mm-hmm. So what made you want to get into real property? Like, you never did that before. What was the fears getting started in that, and why? Well,
I don't think I had any fears, because I had, done some REOs, and I was seeing the profit margins in that. But for me, it was diversifying my portfolio and never putting my eggs all in one basket. I just remember there was a time I was working for a very large hedge fund, and there came a time where there was a time for separation. And that separation I wasn't prepared for. My children were in college. I'm making a $36,000 tuition payment, and my income stopped. And I had not prepared for that income stopping. And I said, well, if I had done A, B, C, and D, and I would have had another egg in the basket, I wouldn't be in panic mode. I wouldn't be trying to figure out how I'm going to reinvent myself in order to be able to survive, because I didn't want to go back to corporate America. Mm-hmm. I did not want to go back to a bank. I didn't want to go back and sit behind a desk. So that was what made me get into real estate. And then where I'm from, real estate's pretty reasonable, pretty cheap. So I was like, well, I got some investors that want to diversify, that'll do some hard money loans, that'll fund my deals, and I can actually also create another revenue stream that I don't really need to depend on. It can just be mailbox money, and can just sit and kind of collect dust for when I retire. And the other thing that I found out is that, based off of the lifespan of my family, I had not prepared properly, where my grandmothers are in their 90s. And I'm like, I haven't saved enough money to live. Yeah. So that was really what made me get into the fix and flips. And it seems to be fun. I'm got to work on some things, because I think that I'm giving away some margins.
Yeah, we were talking about that. You're putting too much expensive fixtures in the house. And I was like, hey, I use $12, $15 light fixtures from Home Depot.
And I was in awe. Yeah. I'm like, I can't put that in the house. They'll talk about me. They'll talk about me if I do that, but I am trying to dial back on how I actually, the kitchen is really like my thing, because I like to cook, and like the kitchen is my haven of rest. So every time I go into a kitchen and I start telling people, tear this wall down, open this wall up, put the barn door here to separate the living room from the dining room. So I get all excited about doing this stuff, and then I'm not really thinking about costs and thinking about the return that I got to give my investors their money back, or if sometimes I'll do just a straight loan, sometimes I'll do a JV, depending on how long I think I'm going to be in the deal. And it keeps my money, coming back, where I don't have to go look for new sources for money, because I have made my investors very profitable by doing that.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a skill set that you'll learn over time. I mean, I've been doing real estate for 19 years. And again, with the renovations, they get costly. Like, it's tough to stay on budget with the real estate, with the renovations. So I usually, put 10 to 15% more above what I estimated for renovation and try to fall, within that line and try not to run beyond that. But the flips, if you're doing flips, then sometimes is necessary to put higher end quality products in the real estate, because like the kitchen is going to attract the woman, the kitchen and bathroom, that's what you guys like when you walk in the house. You need that wow effect. So you have to spend some money on that. But for the rentals, please don't put big pictures and all of the 48-inch ranges and all that stuff in the rental property. So and I try to evaluate people also by doing some of the Facebook lives and everything that I do, just showing the product. Sometimes I'll talk about buying in bulk or how much I paid for this and where I got it from, so people can pick up on that and do that. So, but that's great. I think that everything you mentioned is great, having that diversified model and building other revenue streams. And then also you're doing some mastermind stuff also too, which is part of the education, which is another revenue source and adding value to people. So let's talk a little bit about that. Like, I know you did it before and you're coming out and doing it again. The structure, what is the purpose of that? Let's just talk about that. What is the purpose of creating that venue where people can come and connect? Like, what do you get out of that?
So I actually, every time somebody comes to a mastermind that I do, I learn something as well. So it's also making myself available and opening my mind up to learn. I don't know everything, and there are people who can come and bring things to the table who can teach me some things to actually, for me to have the ability to share. So one of the things that I never thought about was holding, my real estate in trust versus holding it in my name. And I was like, oh, I could have done this a whole lot different just to make life a little bit easier for me. And that was one of my takeaways from one of my masterminds that I did last year. So I've been doing them, but I've been doing them like maybe 2 or 3 people. So now I've scaled up to 10 people, and that's kind of like my cutoff. And also teaching people that, you don't have to manage everything to be successful.
Yeah.
And, people in our space, in the note space, they want to control every aspect of their deal. And I think that they're not giving themselves enough credit to trust a servicer and just showing what we're capable of at Main Street as a servicing company. And I just made a rule that you can't do your own workouts if you service with us.
Yeah.
It's just too much of a risk. It's too much of a liability for us. So we just don't allow it. And then it gives me a platform to actually be able to sell assets that Main Street has. And so all those emails back and forth and getting frustrated, I can actually use it as a teaching moment for everyone in the room when we're going over and we're analyzing data. And it's actually tapes that I have the ability to sell right then. So there's a number of reasons why I chose to go back into the masterminds. It benefits me a little bit personally, but it also benefits the business as well.
Awesome.
And these are assets that we own, so I don't have to get permission from anyone to be able to get rid of them. And when people are looking for product and they say they can't find it or they really don't know what to do, if it comes up with something with title, we're right there. We can dig through it, answer questions, and then it also allows other people in the note space to know that some of their questions that they feel like they're not worthy to ask, somebody else in the room is willing to ask those crazy questions to get answers.
Yeah, that's good. And I kind of like that because it pushes and pulls and you get a lot out of it. This year, in fact, I've invested into 2 masterminds to kind of take myself to the next level because I was feeling as though I was in a place where I wasn't growing, and I was like, wow, I need to be around other like-minded people who can push and pull and take it to the next level. So that the masterminds, I'm all for that and doing that. So one last thing before you go, I always ask my guests this, and I don't think I asked you this yet. Why are you passionate for real estate investing?
I think because it's a life changer for me, but it's also a life changer for other people as well. And I think that that's where my passion, where I can actually see those aha moments in other people's lives and making a difference. And actually, not just notes, real estate, fix and flips, all of those things. One of my things this year is the people who are getting a $10,000 tax refund, take that and buy a distressed property. And even if you let it sit, pay the taxes for a year and then take $10,000 and put into that property, now you have an investment property. That's a game changer.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, why would you encourage them to buy a $10,000 property? Well, they're going to blow $10,000 on things that their family really doesn't need. And for me, it's a cultural thing. And it's, investing back in the community that you live in and you can make it a better place.
Wow. That's awesome. That's powerful. Now, where can one find a $10,000 asset at?
In Alliance, Ohio, Canton, Ohio.
Okay.
you can, and that's really how I got started.
Is that like a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, or 1-bedroom? What is that?
So some of them are like they're 3 bedrooms.
3 bedrooms. So you get $10,000. You get a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, somewhere like that. Probably like another $10,000 in fixing up. And what would the rent roll on something like that?
$500 to $600.
Wow, that's a great return. That's a great return. And then within 2 or 3 years, you make your money back.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
You start over again.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thanks for coming on the platform and sharing your knowledge. I really appreciate it. Guys, it's another great episode. Saprina Allen, guest on PFREI, A Passion for Real Estate Investing. See you at the next episode. Like us on Facebook. Watch us on YouTube. Share this with somebody on Instagram at Passion, 4 REI, and on Twitter, the Passion 4 and REI. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.